Heidi-ho, Jeeper. It's time for another Jeep Talk Show flagship episode. We've got Greg back with us this week, and he's going to be bringing us a lot of information on trusses, gussets, and armor, and why you should and why you shouldn't. I'm going to say why you shouldn't is probably weight, but I don't mind the weight. I mean, I like the armor. I like that low center of gravity body armor. Also, too, we're going to be talking about Jeep losses. $2.7 billion. That is a billion with a B.
That's a lot of damn money. Wow.
I mean, they lost it. I wonder if there's going to be like a finder where you can go out there and get
yeah. You do not want to be the guy in that boardroom meeting that's having to deliver that friggin' message. No way, no how.
Get clues as to where you can find it and spread it out a little bit. I'd put it all in Texas, but spread it out a little bit so we can find it. That'd be fun, wouldn't it? $2.7 billion. You could do a lot of Jeep modifications for $2.7 billion.
Oh, endless Jeep modifications. How many Jeeps do you want? How big a barn can we build and put how many Jeeps in it? $2.7 billion.
So, Greg, remind people who you are, where you work, and what you do for a living.
Howdy. I'm Greg Nichol, local gear wizard, if you will. Work for Platinum Drivetrain Works in Hutto, Texas. I'm the lead tech and installer there. Been off-roading with a passion and professionally turning wrenches, fabricating, amongst other things, for the better part of over 3 decades. So sometimes I kind of know what I'm talking about, even if my opinions are wrong.
The important thing is that you act like you know what you're talking about. Not that you actually know, because
stage presence, baby.
You can always tell people, no, you misunderstood me. You misunderstood what I was saying.
It's not my fault you don't understand.
That's right. I'll talk slower for you. All right, so I want to remind everybody, and I want to remind you, Greg, because we had a roundtable last week that I know that you've been interested in getting in on the roundtable. You've been there once.
It's so bad. Yes, I got to get back. I got to get back in there because I'll forget. Honestly, it's just I keep forgetting because in my mind I'm thinking Wednesday, but that's the air date.
Right. The record date.
I need to write it down somewhere. Tuesday night for the recording because I got so many things going on.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. It's a lot of fun. You've been there before. You know how it is. But I'll remind everybody else, Roundtable, we record on Tuesdays, every Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Central Time. And that's the pre-party. The show proper starts about 8 p.m. Central Time. And we use the Zoom meeting, the scourge of COVID, the COVID years. But I like Zoom. Zoom works out really fine. And you join in the Zoom meeting, and then you can interact with the rest of the roundtable people. We've had about here recently. We've been doing about anywhere from 12 to 15 people, but it's gone as high as 25. We can support up to 100. So I think that once you try the roundtable, you'll find out just how enjoyable it is. And it's not just the part that we record. The Zoom meeting continues after the recording, and then that's when it gets fun. That's when everybody unbuckles their belt and their pops their, like after a big meal, and you just relax and have a good time. So it continues.
We stayed on that first one I did with y'all. It was we stayed on, I think, almost as long after the recording was done as we did actually recording.
Exactly.
Because the conversation was so good and everybody had such great things to say to one another. I was like, this is fun. I need more of this.
Well, it's Jeepers talking about Jeeps. I mean, it's not always Jeep and stuff too. It could be a bunch of other things.
Oh yeah. Well, little things to big things. It's not just what's going on in the shop, what's going on under the Jeep. I mean, trail reports and conditions, tow pig stuff, just whatever the newest, coolest, latest, greatest gadget is. There's, everybody gets to kind of compare notes and shoot the shit at the same time. And if somebody has like a legit question between all of us that are in there, you're bound to get at least a couple of right answers. So.
Oh, and I should add, because this is just, I just know this because I got it all set up and we use it all the time, but we do the Zoom meeting, and then when we want to share pictures or stories or links and stuff, we make use of our Discord server. We actually have a channel for the roundtable on the Discord server where people can post pictures and links and things, and then or pictures of things they're working on. It's really good. So really the thing you need to do to get all this stuff, because it gets a little confusing trying to keep up all this stuff, getting it started, go over to xjtalkshow.com/contact, and you'll see the link for the Discord invite. You'll see the link for how to join the roundtable meeting. So it how to send us emails, all kinds of crap. So xjtalkshow.com/contact is where you want to go to find out how you connect everything, to be part of the Jeep community. All right, Greg. So before we get started here on the fun stuff you want to talk about, I want to talk about some stuff that's it's news related. It's not fun stuff, but I think it's important for us Jeepers to know. We all love Jeeps, and we want Jeeps to continue on for as long as we love Jeeps. So Stellantis, the parent company of Jeep, reported a preliminary net loss of approximately 2.3 billion euros. Who gives a rat's ass about euros? You know what I call
$7 billion.
You know what I call the EU, right? You pronounce it EU. So this was keep in mind, this is $2.7 billion for the first half of 2025.
That is a significantly large amount of money in a very, very, very fiscally short amount of time.
So
that's a lot.
So this is according to multiple sources, including CNBC, NBC, and ABC News, which I think is all under the fake news heading, but I think this one is actually correct. This significant loss is attributed to several factors. And I knew they were going to go this way because nobody likes it. Nobody likes the tariffs being a success. So
wait, let me guess. The 392 comeback isn't selling as good as they thought it was after bringing it back and discontinuing it, bringing it back again. Is that it?
No, this one is the number one thing is U.S. tariffs. The company faced an estimated 300 to 350 million euros in losses due to the new U.S. tariffs.
So I have to ask because I will admit when I'm out of my element.
Hang on one second. I'm waiting for the dogs to shut the hell up.
Oh.
We'll see what happens. Yeah. So anyway, U.S. Tariffs. Oh, hang on. I don't want to start with that. Yep. U.S. tariffs impact. The company faced an estimated 300 to 350 million euros in losses due to the new U.S. tariffs, which particularly affected the manufacture and shipment of imported vehicles. Now, let me just make sure I understand right. And I think this point could be argued. The tariffs were not fair. They weren't equal between the United States and Europe. And now I don't think they still may not be fair, but they're closer. And is it possible that the tariffs led to a part of this? But 300 to 350 million, that's a lot of money, but it ain't no 2.7 billion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like I said, I'll admit when I'm out of my element and I'm not even 100% sure if I understand on a small, like the detailed level of how tariffs even work. So I have to look at it in terms of, from the layman's explanation, they have to pay extra to bring in stuff that's not being made here. In a nutshell,
they're paying a tax to the United States government.
Okay,
yeah.
So if anything in your American assembled vehicle has to be imported from out of the country,
you're paying a tax,
and they're having to pay extra taxes to get that crap in here. Do you really think that one of the world's largest car manufacturing outfits is going to eat that money, or are they going to pass it along to us,
right,
as a potential consumer? They're going to pass it along, and you know what happens then? Sales go
right. Because
people don't want to pay extra.
Yeah. So and of course that's kind of the plan, I think, which is. It'd be a shame if you couldn't sell your vehicles here in the United States. They say, well, it'd be a shame you couldn't sell your vehicles in our country. And it's like, well, we got a lot more consumers here than you got over there. But maybe we could work this out with no tariffs, so I think that's the ultimate plan. And of course, what are you going to do? Just continue to bend over and take it, or have some short-term payment?
Yeah. I think till everybody gets together and decides that the money is right both ways, there's what we hear and see on the news versus what's probably happening behind a lot of those closed door meetings. Come on.
Oh yeah.
Capitalism 101, baby.
Yeah.
Who's going to walk out of that room feeling like they're taking it in the ass the least? or who's going to walk out of there feeling like they're getting ahead on the other guy pretty good. That's usually how those kind of things go, right? So I don't know. It's just a staggering amount of money.
Oh, it is.
Even I know that the what'd you say? It was 350 million euro loss.
300 to 350 million
just
euros.
Based on the tariff impact. Was that over the 6 months too, or was that just?
I'm assuming,
what's the time frame on that one?
I'm assuming so, since that's what the story is based on, is the first half of this year.
That's getting somebody's attention. That they're not going to let that slide. So what do they do?
And I think it's good from the standpoint of maybe we should make this shit in the United States. That way we can save 300 to 350 million euros. I mean, that's kind of the other point of it is, what can we do for America and the American people? So, I don't know. I don't fully understand it either. But I do like the America first, attitude. And frankly, it's a Jeep. Come on. That's an American vehicle, and it should be American vehicle made by Americans.
Stellantis encompasses a great deal of makes and models above and beyond Jeep. That's just one in a very small pile of cars. I mean, we can't, it's not that the Jeep, I was, halfway teasing about the 392s. You can't base what their loss is just on our little slice of the pie. New Jeeps. I don't think new Jeep sales have dropped as much in the last few years as full-size SUV, full-size truck. I mean, have you noticed the recent, I say pretty recent, the prices have come way down very recently on the full-size trucks because they couldn't sell it.
Yeah, if you can't sell it.
The prices got stupid, and then the market flipped, and now it's a buyer's market for those, but it's just happened in the last 6 months or so. Mm-hmm. It took a while to get there. I mean, I'm not spending $100,000 on a Jeep. I don't give a shit what package it's got or what engine it's got in it. I'm not doing it.
I mean, God bless you if you can afford that.
Tear it up anyway. Yeah. I want to get into my Jeep platform as cheap as I can so that I can save the money for the upgrades.
Oh yeah. So you mentioned sales decline. That's the number 2 here on the list. North America sales decline. Yeah. Sales in North America, a key market for Stellantis, dropped 25% in the second quarter of 2025 compared to the previous year, driven by reduced manufacturing and shipments of tariff, they're going back to the tariff thing, impacted import vehicles and lower fleet channel sales. I think
fleet channel sales, that's a big one if you think about it.
Yeah, I think it's just
regular cars and trucks.
I think the vehicles are just too damn expensive. I think it's the biggest problem.
Yeah. Or I mean, what was it when some of the cooler editions of the Bronco started coming out, like the Sasquatch and some of those? People are paying over 6 figures with all that huge dealer markup and then waiting for a year to take delivery on the thing. And then you get it and you're like, I paid $120,000 for this.
I don't see how people
It's kind of a kick in the balls.
It's kind of like seeing the people out there with $100,000 tow rig, another $20,000, $30,000 for trailer, and then a heavily modified Jeep on the trailer. And a wife and kids. I don't see how they could do it. I mean, it just amazes
there's certain incomes that are better than others. Or I mean, we as well as I do, that's either a bunch of maxed out credit or that's somebody with a damn good job. Or generational wealth, I guess.
Actually, I think it's maxed out credit because I don't think anybody has jobs like that.
That's a lot of it.
Yeah, because you're a shop owner. You're a shop owner, and that's one way if people own their business, which you did before you got joined up with Platinum. That's one way that you could have enough income to do stuff like this. But I don't think that's. I think those are few and far between. I mean, I'm not asking you to give away any of your stuff.
I wasn't clearing that kind of coin.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't hurting, but I wasn't clearing that kind of money.
Right.
So.
And I think there's a limiting factor when you're a one man shop because you can only make. You can only work so long.
Levels, yeah. No, it doesn't matter how many hours a day I spend there. I'm still one guy. I'm only going to get so much done in a given day. So it's like, I kind of know what my max production level is. So, until I get, like Mike wants to add another lift. He wants to add some more warm bodies. We want to expand. Then we get there. Well, then, things are definitely going to pick up. But for the time being, slow and steady, focus on the thing that I'm best at. So I think that people, again, it's important to know, which they probably didn't mention in those articles, what types of vehicles, like it mentioned fleet vehicles. I mean, that takes a lot of the higher end stuff out of it. So you're not going to blame like the high end sales. You're not going to blame the regular average working man sales. If it's corporate stuff, if it's fleet stuff, those are much bigger hits to the manufacturer all at once than a certain geographical location going, all of a sudden, I don't want to spend this much on a Jeep, or all of a sudden these new scat packs aren't as cool as TikTok made them seem. So I'm not dropping that 80K or whatever those things go for. So, and the market doesn't support. It's the same thing with housing. I was going to say a minute ago, how many times have you been where they're putting up a new housing development and they're big, beautiful homes right on top of each other? You see all the signs on the frontage road, homes starting in the 400s, whatever, homes starting in the low 600s.
House prices are
and I drive past those things and I go, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a kid of the 80s. What the fuck are you doing to afford buying a brand new house as your first house for $600,000+? I remember when I bought my first house as a very young adult, 64 large. That was it.
Right.
For 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath with a single car garage and a halfway decent part of Amarillo, Texas, $64,000. And I thought it was the world of money. I had no idea at that age.
Yeah,
Jeeps are the same way.
I don't see how people
forget how much they initially cost us, and you don't factor that in.
Yeah, I don't see how people can afford $2,000 and $3,000 a month house payments. That boggles my mind. Well, and also too, when my wife and I got married and before we had children, we made the decision that because I wanted her to be able to stay at home with the kids. I didn't want the kids to be in daycare. I wanted the mom to be there whenever they got out of school, and we did that. So it makes things a lot more difficult when you only have one income, and there's a lot more stresses associated with that too. One person loses their job, you don't got no money. So it all worked out okay, but
in there,
yeah. So and I think a lot of that has to do with these people. They have multiple incomes, so they have two people working. Yeah. And so I could just well imagine the wife wanting to buy something, and you got the tow rig and the I mean she's using it too. She's having fun with it too.
Babe.
Yeah, you drop $300,000 for toys that you use on the weekend, and then you say, I don't think you need a new stove. I don't think you need this. I don't think you need all these clothes. It'd be a really hard conversation to have. So I was going to add to this before we wrap this up. So I thought this was important to make note of. The company, Stellantis, is under new leadership with CEO Antonio Filoso appointed in May of 2025. So we're almost 6 months into the year before they got new leadership. So, I mean, this guy is saying, hey, I just got here. That $2.7 billion, I had nothing to do with that.
Not on me. Blame the last guy.
That's right. So, then Carlos Tavares, who I am not a happy camper with that guy.
So familiar, Tony. Why does that sound so familiar? Don't blame me. Blame the last guy.
Exactly. It's a politics thing.
Where have we heard that before?
Exactly.
Oh my God! It is a politics thing.
Well, I'm actually
if
hopeful.
The sarcasm isn't oozing at this point.
Yeah, I'm actually hopeful that the new leadership will make a difference with Jeep, and I think it's probably got to. Otherwise, in 3 months we're going to have new leadership. So anyway, Tavares resigned and is focusing. Now they're focusing on new product launches. Expected to boost performance in the second half. How can you not do better in the second half?
You got to do well. It's going to have to be something big, right? They're either going to go full tilt boogie on the retro inspired stuff and just go for big power numbers and those kind of features. Just rely on what's the word, nostalgia, if you will, or they're going to have to come out with some technology to debut like. Look at this cool shit and have it be something truly groundbreaking to bring people back into the fold. Because
I think they need to get away from technology. They need to get back to the roots of Jeep.
I was fixing to say that's the direction that I would personally go. Just knowing what I know about the market, knowing what I know about Jeep owners, as much as we all like cool, shiny new gadgets and widgets and stuff, most of us can't stand the majority of the technology that we have to deal with on later model Jeeps, unless it's something cool like trail cameras or whatever, or stereo. But when the electrical gremlins pop up and programming problems start happening and sensors and computers and all that shit, then you're just like, if you're like us, I shouldn't say everybody, if you do like to turn a lot of your own
wrenches. I think it's
most
people that are that way.
I think it is too. It's too much. You're almost forced to take the vehicle to a specialist of some kind. It's not like you can just pop the hood and go, well, what's wrong with the programming here? Unless you're set up to deep dive into something like that. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of becomes a double whammy, because you would think at this point in the game, with all the years of development, research, and trial and error, that they'd have most of it figured out pretty well. But at the same time, you think we wouldn't have to regress to having constant issues with the same old shit. The start-stop systems, the goofy aux battery systems, some of the traction control and speed sensor systems, the ABS problems, the transmission problems.
But the start-stop and the aux battery is government influence. That's 100% our federal government that caused that.
Yeah, I'm like, I feel the same way about the EPA and, all that stuff as I do about, the ATF.
Yeah.
I think we'd be better off without it, honestly.
Oh, yeah, no.
Is it Volkswagen under the Stellantis umbrella, if I'm not mistaken?
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure Volkswagen is, and they got in big trouble just a few years back.
I thought that was hilarious, where they said, we can't meet these EPA standards, so let's do something. They just
programmed in a cheat code.
Is there anything plugged into my OBD2? Yes, there is. Change the settings quick. There's nothing to see here.
That's awesome. That's like the ultimate. Somebody sitting around in a room, a meeting or something, was like, we could just put this line of code in here and not have to worry about that. And everybody went, okay, let's do it. It's great until they got caught.
How do you keep that secret too? It's just, that's huge.
They weren't gonna. That was destined to blow up from when they started.
They were balancing it between what's it going to save us and what's it going to cost us potentially.
Right. It's all about money.
Yeah, it's a business decision, and I understand there's some people that get very upset about that type of thing because they believe that our environment should be pristine, and I'm all for that to a degree. But we need to be able to afford what we're doing. We need to be able to get from point A to point B and have a little fun in the process. I mean, I don't.
And if the government's going to make it to the point between fuel prices and emissions and all this other crap, like the EV mandate that finally, I think, did away with or is in the process of being done away with, some of that stuff, as great as it sounds on paper, as great as it sounds in a little meeting, in practical application is not.
So it was a California thing, and California thought it was a good idea not to get rid of dead trees and brush, and they thought it was a good idea to not have these big pools of water to fight fires because some tick bird or something is going to not have a good home.
Well, it was that somebody in some office up on high wanted to save that money for something else.
No, somebody's been watching too much Star Trek is the problem. It's because that's the way they're approaching it in California. Do you know, talking about the EV mandate, that's a California thing, and that's what was gotten rid of. But when California did it, it's like 13 other states that are following along. So it's significant. So Newsom is talking about doing a new EV mandate since the old one got scrapped by Trump.
Oh my gosh, they're not going to be able to.
How are these people getting elected?
The population of California, Tony. How many of those people, number one, can afford to go out subsidy or tax break or credit or whatever aside? How many people can go out and afford to drop $65,000 to $85,000 entry level on a brand new car today? I can't.
Right?
Can you?
No.
And if you are being forced into that position as a resident, and it has to be a certain year model, I'm sure there's all kinds of caveats. It can't be more than so many years old. It has to charge this way. I'm sure they've got all that crap all lined out, and they're all sitting at home feeling real good about themselves for the new mandate they're fixing to push. Yeah. How many hundreds of thousands of internal combustion engine driven vehicles are on the highways and byways of the great state of California that they're just going to what? Throw them all away? I thought this was an environmental thing. I thought we were worried about the environment. So we're just going to do what with those cars? Dump them in the ocean? You're going to stick them in the San Andreas Fault, hope for the best? I mean, what's the plan there? It's not. It's virtue
these
signaling.
people can't think their way out of a wet paper bag. I mean, they do not have the ability to think things through. And if they do, they don't care because they're making decisions for the political view of it. What's people? What are the tree huggers going to think?
Millions of dollars in the bank account and all the good, tax stuff and all the insider trading tips and stuff. I'm sure it makes it a lot easier to stomach when that poor little whatever kind of bird it is they were trying to save out in the desert by not filling up their water reservoirs. They had a similar one. They tried. There's a local wheeling spot, and it reminds me of this. It's up in the Panhandle, Texas. You may or may not have heard of it. Canadian River. It's north of Amarillo by about 30 miles. There's not a whole lot to do, but it's still fun. And since it's state owned, you get your little the sticker,
right?
Your off-road permit sticker, and then you just go wheel. And they've got mild trails and some riverbed stuff. And most of the time it's muddy or dry, but nothing really in between. There was some kind of minnow. It was the Arkansas Shiner minnow that got introduced into that river system. It was not native to the river, got introduced. And the local powers that be wanted to shut down everything to do with any kind of off-roading, wheeling, cattle ranching, aquifer type stuff, like where they're pulling water out of the river, whatever it was. They said, we're going to shut it all down to save this minnow because it's an endangered species. And it wasn't even native to the freaking river basin. And you want to destroy hundreds of millions of dollars worth of agriculture and ranching that bases its lifeblood off of access to that water.
So, Greg, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but there's people out there that think people, and then by the way, they're one of the group, that people are bad. They shouldn't be on this earth.
We're the problem.
Yeah, we're the problem, and with a little help, a little financial and political help, we'll get it all straightened out. I'm really surprised they're not all for nuclear war or even nuclear power plants. Oh, really quick. I saw this the other day and our conversation reminded me of this. In-N-Out Burger. You've heard of it, right?
Yes.
They're based in California. I'm not I mean, it's okay. It's a burger. But it's
all
not,
right.
Yeah, it's not better than Whataburger.
No.
But I saw an article that the heiress and founder, or not founder, but the owner of In-N-Out Burger is moving. She's moving out of California. And she's looking
to Texas?
Well, Tennessee, which is one of the places a lot of people in California are moving to. And she's going to be moving the corporate headquarters out of California. So the spectacular California burger chain In-N-Out is getting the hell out. I mean, how are they winning elections there? I mean,
man. That's pretty intense.
I mean, I'm not saying they're not going to sell In-N-Out burgers in California. I'm just saying that the people that started there, that made their fortune there, is getting out because that's how bad it's getting.
Did they say exactly what? Like, did they say why? As far as like operating expenses? Or
no,
the taxes,
she said it's just too hard to live in California anymore. I mean, God, could you imagine?
It's too hard to live in California.
Yeah, can you imagine being in San Francisco and worried about stepping on needles or feces or both, or homeless people? It's just a nightmare. Anyway, we've gotten political here, and I don't mean to get too political about this, but there's a lot of nonsense, and I think that politics have a lot to do, and you can look at it either way. I mean, you can look at the Stellantis having these issues because of Trump's policies. Or you can look at it like things are getting straightened out because more Americans are going to be working on things here, making the money in America to make an American vehicle, which I'm for.
Yeah.
So
that's how I'd like to see it go.
Yeah. So
you want to get rid of the tariffs? Produce the stuff here, put it together here, sell it here. No tariff. Super easy.
So I'll just mention this really quick. I'm a big futuristic type person. I follow Tesla, and of course they're doing the full self-driving now. And they're working on the Optimus robots. It is going to be terrifying to the rest of the world when we have AI robots doing things where the AI robot workers will be paid less I mean, paid, their cost, they don't really get paid, but they'll be paid less than what Chinese workers get paid. And there's no shipping. So it's not even like you got to pay for the shipping to get it from China to here. So the United States is going to be producing high quality products, consistently high quality, because AI robots making it, and it doesn't get tired. It doesn't go on a break or anything. Things are getting ready to get a lot cheaper and a lot more abundant here. And we're not going to be getting things from other places in the world other than raw materials.
Yeah. Well, we still just get me started on that. There's a long list of raw materials and, fossil fuels and energy, stuff that we could not have to be dependent on any other part of the world ever again if we were willing to just extract it for our own feet. It's there.
Oh yeah,
it's there. And I think that people are it's real easy if you're not paying attention to that on a daily basis, because it's not part of your day-to-day, week-to-week existence, other than gas prices for most of us at the pump. That's about the only time we pay attention to it. Your average Joe Blow is not waking up in the morning and turning on his phone or flipping a computer over and saying, what is crude oil at per barrel this morning?
Right.
Most of us aren't doing that. We hear numbers sporadically from news and talking heads and stuff. Oh, it's at this much this week, or it's dropped to this much. And you go, is that good or bad? All I know is that down the street at the QT, it's still almost $3 a gallon, and that sucks.
Oh, I'm going to brag. I want to brag because I posted this up on the Discord the other day. I took a picture of it, and it's still too high to me, I think. But I went to Sam's Club, and of course they have a little bit better prices at Sam's Club for the members. But it was $2.47.9. So basically $2.48. Yeah, $2.48 a gallon. And I'm brain farting on the name. One of our regulars on the Discord server, he lives in Canada, and they're at $1.19 a liter. So they're at like $4 and something a gallon in Canada. And so, yeah. And I just want to throw that out there because I think I like tweaking some people like Steve in Chicago, because the prices in Chicago are higher.
Yeah.
And California is super high still. Because they don't give a shit about their people. They're more concerned about how much money, how many taxes they can collect.
They're doing it on purpose to try to price you out of driving a gasoline powered vehicle. They literally don't want you driving it, and they'll keep jacking the prices up until you stop buying the gas.
Yeah, and then you get an electric vehicle, and they don't have enough power to charge the electric vehicle, and then they won't
be able to handle that.
Then they're not going to get the tax revenue from the gas, so they got to start charging you by the mile that you drive with your electric vehicle.
Yep. Have fun with that awesome EV mandate. Let us know how that works out for you.
Oh my God. All right. So that's enough of that. I mean, I know we're enjoying the hell out of it. Some people out there are just getting so angry, typing in reviews about, I just couldn't stand the politics. I had to get out of there. But I don't really think this is politics. I think this is important stuff that we need to think about. It has to do with the hobby that we use and how we are accomplishing that hobby. And my God, lower fuel prices for a Jeep, that's a godsend. All right, so let's get into the subjects that you wanted to talk about, the one you recommended for this episode. I'm not blaming you. I'm giving you the accolades for it because I think this is great. And we try to let the newbies understand this. And even if you've been Jeeping a while, you may still have questions about trusses, gussets, and armor. And I want to say, my. I want to say, oh my in there, but. So where do you want to start? Trusses, gussets, or armor? I think the trusses is a real interesting thing. And I'm almost thinking that, especially with the issues with the JL and the JT, I don't know if the 44s have the same issue, but I know there's some 30s. Maybe it is the 44s on the Rubicons where the front axle breaks.
Yep.
All right. So let's go down that road with the trusses.
So for those of you that aren't up to speed, a truss can be applied to an axle housing in a lot of different ways in order to support whatever it is you are attempting to do with it. And a truss is basically a formed multi-piece steel contraption, if you will. It comes in pieces and you have to clean it all up and you put it all on there, or you're paying someone like me to do it. And basically it welds on. It's not a bolt-on thing. We're talking about the weld-on kind. I don't get into sport bars or bolt-on, those kind of things. We're talking about actually this has to be welded, fabricated, and done correctly. What we're trying to do with a truss on an axle is keep the axle tubes from bending or deflecting.
Keeping it straight.
Keeping it straight. That's what we're trying to avoid. So if you're crawling down the trail and you pop up over a big rock, or you hook into a rut or a tree or something and curb check that sucker, whatever the case may be, we're trying to keep that assembly nice and straight and true.
Oh, and I'll just say this: never, ever go airborne.
No, not unless you built it to put up with that kind of abuse. Right. But the gussets work in basically the same fashion as a truss, but they install normally upper lower on your inner C, which is where your steering knuckle attaches to. And basically between that, because most of the C's on modern axles are some kind of cast steel material, whereas the axle tube itself is a carbon-based steel, DOM of some kind, drawn over mandrel steel tubing. And then, of course, the center chunk, the actual differential housing, is usually some kind of cast steel, or the older stuff was cast iron. So you've got all these different types of steel that don't normally play well together under certain circumstances, because carbon steel is going to flex and return somewhat, have some memory a lot more readily than a cast brittle piece will. But your cast stuff can bend without cracking, and if you try to bend it back, it cracks opposite, because it's already stretched one way. And so this, like, if you bend let's just say this is your upright on your C, and you've got a ball joint out here in your knuckle, and you take a hard hit and it bends the top of that C towards your spring or your shock, is what it does. When you look at the front of the Jeep and it's smiling, the axle housing is smiling at you, that somebody had way too much fun and it's messed up now. So that little C gusset, is what they're called, helps prevent that C from deflecting like that. It locks it into place by giving it some support and backbone and more welds tied in. Truss does the same thing. There's trusses that you can put on the front of a housing if you're worried about banging into stuff straight on. Most Jeepers opt for the ones that mount on high. They mount on top of the axle assembly, and they also provide really convenient location spots and real estate for coil springs and shock mounts and control arm mounts and sway bar tabs and all that groovy stuff. Very, very important if you're doing anything as far as an axle swap where you're changing from one version to another, or a full-on one-ton swap. But we're trying to reinforce the housing. Again, gussets do the same thing. Axle armor. If you've seen for like those lower control arms on a factory TJ, JK, or JL, Gladiator, whatever it is, those control arm mounts from the factory are pretty thin metal. They bend and get marred up pretty easy if you spend a lot of time banging them into the rocks. Well, there's really heavy duty pieces that are usually laser cut or water jet cut that you can weld on in there to gusset that up, and it becomes a little skid. It helps prevent deformation or damage to those axle brackets. And it goes from wall to wall. There's really simple entry-level stuff, and then there's some stuff out there that's like full-on race spec stuff. Again, all of it, that's the good stuff, no matter what brand you're picking, because I'm not going to dog on brands, although I will say TMR is one of my favorite when it comes to quality versus price. That's real high on my list. And they're Canadian, eh? So you're shoring up all the shortcomings of a factory assembly. Well, what about if I do a one-ton swap? It's got thicker tubes, it's got bigger housing, it's got bigger C's. You're putting bigger tires on it. You're also putting more power to it. And you know you're going to go out and beat on it a little bit harder than you normally would, because now you have big boy axles. So all of these same techniques and tricks and stuff work. So when do I not need it? Well, if you're relying on the truss to keep your axle alive and you're still wheeling on a smaller axle, then you're wasting your time, in my opinion, because that's it. That's your only sense of security, is whatever that truss is, because everything else is going to be destined to fail before that if it was installed properly. So if you're wheeling, and this goes back to a lot of what we've discussed, if your wheeling level is exceeding what the factory components are able to handle, do I need a truss? Do I need gussets? Yes. The gussets I would honestly recommend to anybody.
Yeah.
Basically, if you bought a Jeep in 2007 to now, go get you, and you're doing any off-roading, go get you some gussets for the C's. You'll thank me later for that one. It's a notorious weakness on all of those axle assemblies. It didn't matter if it was a 30 or 44. It's just they skimped out.
Well, actually, talking about the weaknesses, like I know my 2021 Gladiator has the knuckles are aluminum. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no reason to gusset an aluminum knuckle
Well, we're
replace
not
that
talking
knuckle.
about the knuckle. We're talking about the C that knuckle attaches to where your upper and lower ball joints.
That's right. That's right. I'm getting the
it's
wrong
inner
side of the C, right?
Capital C. Yeah. So the gusset goes on the back side of the C down to the axle tube, top and bottom, is what it does. It just basically triangulates it.
Right.
To help prevent it from doing that on the end of the tube.
And getting back to the aluminum knuckle, the best thing to do with that is to take it off and put a steel one on there.
Yeah, get the good steel ones. I'm not a fan of the aluminum ones. I'm really not. Not for, again, and there's going to be caveats to any of this stuff, so it's not like a one and done type deal, but it does come back to the level of wheeling you're doing, the type of terrain you like to be on. So if you're spending a lot of time just milling through the backcountry roads, basic entry-level stuff, your aluminum knuckles are fine. You're not going to hurt them.
Well, what happens whenever you start getting what happens when you start getting serious about going off road, and you didn't replace that? That's what I'm saying.
You can save them sometimes, like you were just mentioning earlier on the newer design M210s that have the center axle disconnect. That casting is a weak spot. Yeah. So it's an outer C or inner C, a piece of tubing, that casting for the disconnect, then another piece of tube, then the differential, then another piece of tube in the other C. Every one of those intersections, every one of those joints is a potential failure waiting to happen, either from separation or twisting. We got to shore all that up. They got away from the direct drive hubs with the center axle disconnect because it was less expensive and easier to manufacture than equipping all these Jeeps with selectable hubs.
Right.
Like we see on the full-size trucks and the older models and stuff, which sucks. I wish Jeep would bring back internal hubs. I really do.
Well, I don't know. I remember that on the XJ and the TJs and stuff, you could buy, I think it was Warn hubs, selectable Warn hubs that you could install those. Kit. Yeah. But it was expensive.
Before that, it was just your full size, big body Wagoneers.
Yeah, it came that way from the factory. My 83 Chevrolet pickup had the lockers, but they were automatic. So you would put it in 4-wheel drive and go forward, and they would automatically lock. But it was, and that was fine. But it was a real pain in the ass unlocking it because they were also automatic unlock, and I had to roll down both windows and back up straight. And listen for 2 clicks. Yeah.
Yep.
And if you weren't sure, or if a dog farted and you couldn't hear that other one, it's like, okay, I got to do it again, because you were going to mess something up if you didn't do it right. But I thought that was funny because I think it would have been better just to get out and turn the thing there on the end of the axle and engage and disengage.
Lockout. Well, and you can even go so far, they've got, for a lot of them, they have internal truss. It's called a tube sleeve.
Yeah, that's true.
It's another piece of DOM that you actually install in the axle tube. Of course, you strategically drill holes in the factory tube before you put it in, and you go in and rosette weld all those plug holes, and you weld up the end, and now you've doubled the wall thickness of the tubing is what you've done. So that helps a lot too.
Is that better? Because you got to remove everything to put the truss on anyway. Is it better to sleeve it?
No, if you're doing it right. If you're doing it right, you've got the axle housing, you preheat, you weld it properly, you post heat, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of places that don't do it that way, and you can always tell because you'll see it where their welds are cracking and stuff's coming undone, and there's little rust trails where there shouldn't be. And I've not been a fan of ever seeing anybody burn a truss on a live axle that's still got seals and bearings in it.
Oh no, I figured you have to remove all that stuff. I don't know why
you would ever do that, but people do it. So
oh my God, that's something to check before you ask the people that are going to be putting the truss on your axle. So again, what do you think?
Yeah. Internal tube or external? You, Tony?
Internal tube or external truss? Or yes?
Oh, both. Yeah, do both. If you're worried about it, do both.
Yeah.
It's just like putting a locker in when you're re-gearing. There's no better time to upgrade that differential than when you're already in there doing the gears.
If you got everything removed anyway,
that's kind of like an easy one to go, I want that. Again, done properly with quality components, the stuff is awesome. And as far as weight, it doesn't add as much as you think it would on the average Jeep. I know there's a lot of the kits that are out there from like Barnes and Artec. There's a whole bunch of them out there, but there's a lot of them that are actually a little bit thinner gauge steel and they're formed pieces than some of the other offerings. And it's more of for lack of a better way to describe it. It's like their sport entry version.
Mm-hmm.
So it's lightweight, and you're still reinforcing the assembly, but just not like full on race truss reinforced, right?
Right.
So you have different levels that you can go to suit and accommodate what you're trying to do with the rig without having to spend, because let's be honest, your average shop that knows what they're doing with a welder, you're going to spend what, 130 to 160 or up per hour in labor plus your parts. And that's why I said a second ago, if they're only charging you a few hours per axle to install your favorite truss,
I see
you
what you're
know
saying.
they're not pulling that housing all the way apart.
Right.
You know they're not, because there's not enough time built into it. You go to a legit fab shop and ask them how much they charge to truss an axle. You get a quote from me on how much it costs to truss an axle and do it correctly. You're going to be floored at how expensive it can be, depending upon which boxes you tick, because it's a lot of effort and time and prep involved. It's not just the welding. There's
right.
all the other pre and post stuff that is important to it. So, and I don't want to go off into too much detail, because I know those are questions people ask when they finally get there and decide to make that mod or upgrade. But do you want it? Yeah, everybody wants it because it looks fucking burly and cool. It looks like you're serious about what you're doing. So you get those points checked, gets the ego check. Does it actually do what it's supposed to? Yes, if you use quality parts and it's installed properly. It's a win-win. Like I said, the weight's not too big of a deal in my book, especially on a half-ton axle. You're just not adding enough raw material to change it radically enough to go, oh God, it's going to handle different. Now, you're not going to notice that. So body armor, my personal and professional thoughts on body armor are a little bit different than when it comes to axle armor. Axle armor to me is like good drivetrain skid plates, like your Moto-Built system on your Gladiator. Worth every friggin' penny, no matter what type of terrain you're on. It's just that level of protection is nice.
There's a lot of stuff there that you can break. Big gaping holes when you're laying under your Jeep and go, that's expensive. That's expensive.
Yeah. You don't have that little guy on your shoulder every stinking obstacle going, watch out for this, watch out. Nope, you've got the peace of mind. Now, body armor, I'm going to say some things about body armor that might piss some people off or hurt some feelings. Personally, from a financial standpoint and a modification standpoint, you have to look at it in terms of, I'm worried about damaging sheet metal, so I'm going to install body armor or have someone install body armor on my Jeep. I don't care if it's steel or aluminum. There's only one or two methods for installing armor on sheet metal. The most commonly used methods for most of the kits I've seen in the last 15 plus years, you're drilling holes in the sheet metal.
Yeah.
You're installing a rib nut or some kind of fastener. And then after you pick whatever finish you want for your armor, you're bolting the armor to that. So two key things. You Swiss cheese the one thing you're trying to protect and save, so you've effectively destroyed it.
Right.
Because if you take the armor off, what are you going to do with all those rib nuts and holes in the sheet metal? B, you're asking that sheet metal to be the foundation for your newfound armor and subsequent newfound confidence, because now you don't give a damn about rubbing up against that gnarly old 8-inch diameter salt cedar on the trail because I got armor. And what you don't realize is that the sheet metal is the only thing holding it up.
Right.
You're just thinking about, I don't have to worry about that scratch anymore. I don't have to worry about caving in that panel anymore. Yes, the weight can play a factor if you're one of those people that did all steel all the way around, like full on every panel. You've got the steel highline fenders, you've got, the rocker protects, you've got everything you could think to throw at that sucker. Yeah, you've added hundreds of pounds worth of material to the vehicle. So that is worth taking into consideration if you decide to go that path. It's you're adding an adult plus size passenger and with gear,
right?
By putting all that on. It's the same thing with aftermarket bumpers. Some of them can get on the heavy side if you go with the full tail boogie stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a big fan of it. My mantra has always been that paint is lubrication for the rocks and trees, and the sheet metal is just there to hold up the paint.
Well, I know you're aware of Meek magnets because of Zabo.
That's me, though. That's not everybody.
Yeah, I think the Meek magnet stuff is a good compromise because it's thin, and for the minor scratches that you might get, it's going to protect
pin, like cedar tree pinstriping, right. That kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely. If you don't want to have to deal with that stuff, by all means. But once you go down the road and start punching holes in the body, are you really that worried about body damage anymore?
Yeah.
Like, if you're one of those people that constantly is repainting the rock rings on their beadlocks because you had them powder coated when they were first installed, and then you go out, scratch them up, and you realize, I don't want to keep taking these sons of bitches back apart to have them recoated. So you just start rattle canning them every trip.
That's the thing to do,
to keep them fresh. It's like, if it's not for your own personal aesthetic value, then who cares? It's a rock crawler. It's supposed to be scratched up. It shouldn't be showroom pretty, in my opinion. If you're worried about tearing it up,
it's a lot of busy work.
Don't go on the trail.
It's a lot of busy work. Let's just say that. I mean,
it is.
If you're using it.
You know how many times I've polished my KMCs since I put them on 6 years ago? 0.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's a beadlock. It's getting beat up. I don't give a shit what it looks like anymore.
All right. So trusses, gussets, and armor, never a bad idea, but it just really depends on how you look at the armor. I agree with you as far as drilling big ass holes into the sheet metal, and the sheet metal being the basis for the holding and the structure, the critical structure for the body armor. And I think sometimes people forget that whenever they're putting fenders on, aftermarket fenders. What's that aftermarket fender attached to? Is it the sheet metal that's holding it back? So what are you doing whenever you put that undamageable fender on there, or the flare?
Everything that's holding it up.
Yeah. So, and I believe this is true. I haven't looked into it, but I believe you can actually get flares that are attached to the frame, or something more substantial than the thin sheet metal. So keep that in mind when you're looking that direction. All right. So we talked about trusses, gussets, and armor. Anything you wanted to wrap up with on that? Maybe something that we didn't cover?
Just make sure, like we always talk about, because there's always going to be, nothing's free. There's the trade-off for everything.
Exactly.
My main thing is make sure that whoever you're choosing to install those, or if you do decide to do it yourself, take plenty of time to understand what is involved and what you're getting into. Don't go based on price alone. Don't be shocked if you do get a quote from somewhere like me that's a little higher than what you were expecting to see, because, Joe Blow on such and such group page said he only paid $250 an axle to have his burned on at the local shop. Well, I'm sure those guys build exhaust systems like all day long, badass. It doesn't mean I want them burning shit on my axle housings. You know what I mean?
Buddy,
so
this is funny.
Do your homework.
This is funny. Full-size trucks, whenever I was like in my 20s, buddy of mine had a cool Ford pickup, and he went to the exhaust shop to have a roll bar built for the back of his truck. It was really cool. It was a dual roll bar, and it was all pipe from exhaust.
So it was a light bar. It wasn't a roll bar.
Yeah, exactly. It looked cool, but it was just all muffler pipe. And so, yeah, and that's the thing you got to keep in mind. I've seen roll bars for Gladiators, and they don't mount to the bed. To the base of the bed where it attaches to the frame. It mounts to the railing on top. And that thing ain't doing nothing for roll bar. It's a light bar holder. Yeah.
It's purely decorative, and then no, if it's not tied, it's like any kind of cage or like I guess anything you could do to shore up your factory cage is great, but the fact that it's bolted to the body and not the chassis means that you're going to get one decent hard hit on that cage and it's done. It's compromised at that point. My factory cage has been through hell and back with nice little tumps, and I've never had a full on at speed like barrel roll or anything, but it's been over on its both sides numerous times. And even the most aggressive one that I've had, as far as laying over hard, wasn't enough to damage the actual cage itself. It just tore up the trim and the cladding and stuff.
Right.
So I know that with the LS swap, that's going to change. So one of the things that's first on the list after the LS goes in is that the factory cage is coming out, and it's getting a legit, we're doing moto built. It's going to be a combination project between the drivetrain shop and the off-road shop, and we're going to customize it to fit in my build. It won't be your typical JK moto built cage. It's going to be a little bit different. Plus, it will be tied into the chassis in no less than 6 places. Yeah. Probably closer to 8 by the time I'm done with it, but I'm shooting for 8. That way, I know I can attack whatever it is I'm going up against, and I don't have to worry about it. The same thing goes with your armor. If it's installed properly and it's of substantial quality, you can scratch that off the worry list. I don't have to worry about dragging my control arms over those rocks anymore. I don't have to worry about, banging that axle tube into something. Or if I do pop off a ledge a little bit too aggressively, I don't have to worry about splitting my housing in half. Because you got to think that's got to be a really, really shitty way to end a weekend of fun, either in the first day or whatever day, it doesn't matter. That you crest a dune or pop over a rock or into something, get a little froggy, and all of a sudden you're literally looking at your housing split in half.
Yeah.
Just that's got to be gut-wrenchingly sickening. I've done some pretty gnarly damage, but I've never broken one that far gone.
Oh, it's scary as hell. It's scary as hell to see that whenever it happens, because you see Rubicons out there with 44s and with that happening. So we're getting short on time here, but I want to ask you a question that one of our, going back to the Discord, the Jeep Talk Show community on Discord, they posted up some pictures. He was he got rid of the sliders that were on his the 4xe, and he was putting a new set. I forget who made them. So these were the body bolt attached sliders. So you had to pull the body bolts out to slide the thing under
body
the
mounts.
Yeah. And so I did not know about this. I'm sure you do. The JL and the JT, those front body bolts have red Loctite on them. And
yes, they do.
And you know what he did? He broke both of those. And I started doing some investigation as far as, okay, now what? Oh my God, what a horrible, horrible path you have to go down. So obviously the thing to do is either don't do it or heat up. And I'm assuming this is correct. You have to heat up the bolt to get rid of the.
You can either gently. There's two ways to do it to ensure that you're not going to tear it up. You either use mild heat and take your time, because you don't want to smoke any body bushings or any of that stuff. I mean, you're just heating up the head of the bolt, trying to localize it like with a MAP gas torch or something. You don't want to be into there with a full-on acetylene cutting torch trying to heat that thing up unless you want to cut it out.
Right.
Even a really wicked heat gun would do the same thing. But the method that I actually prefer and still use to this day is just good old muscle power. If you go with a manual wrench and break it loose and just go nice and even and slow, it'll come right out.
Really?
The people that run into problems try to zip them out with a big impact. And what happens is that thread locking compound doesn't have a chance to really unset with friction and heat, which is why doing it by hand sets up that friction and heat on a more controlled level, softens up the thread locker so that it'll come out nice and easy. If you start with, because the threads on those things those bolts are big, long bolts, and they've got a lot of thread on them. Yeah. And every bit of that thread, it seems like, has got the locking compound on it. And it's the same. It doesn't have to be a JLGT. And almost any of them, they're like that with a full chassis. Some of the earlier Jeeps are even worse. The Chevrolets, your cat-eyed Chevys, and the ones prior to that were the absolute worst. A whole different story. If you're going to mount something like a slider or a step or a Nerf bar or whatever to your vehicle for any reason other than aesthetics, do not use anything that mounts to the body mounts. Get something that ties into the chassis. That is my number one recommendation. You have problems like your buddy finds out about, and that becomes a nightmare scenario if you do it. Second, you're asking the body mount bolt and subsequent hardware to hold up the entire weight of the vehicle if you lean over on that bar, on a rock, a tree, a rut, whatever the case may be. They're going to bend up every time. And then your doors are rubbing, or you can't put them back on at all. It damages the sheet metal. It's not worth it. They may sound like they're worth it in the short term, because that version, the body mount version, like the Poison Spider ones that were real popular several years ago before they changed ownership, the body mount version was like $350. And then for another 150, you can have them powder coated. The well-done versions are almost twice as expensive because they're a different design.
Right.
And the way they tie in, you can use them appropriately. The body mount stuff, you can't.
I didn't know.
And I personally experienced what that can be like, because we had a leftover set of body mount ones that were actually pretty barely little bars. They weren't like shitty little super thin metal bars. They were well made, but the way they mount was horrible.
Right.
Because you've got basically the 3 body mount bolts is all that's holding that thing to the Jeep. And every time I leaned up against anything, it didn't matter how much pressure I put on them. Every time up. So now I'm out here constantly with a high lift jack handle or a winch or something, my buddy's toe strap, having to pull them suckers back down every time I want to put my doors back on. And God forbid if you have the doors on and bend one of them up, because then you're not crawling out that door. You got to go out one of the other ones.
Yeah, Duke of Hazard, that type thing.
I just, for the life of me, if anybody never hears anything else I say ever again, please do not put body mount frame sliders, steps,
like that,
anything,
because now you don't have to worry about breaking the bolts if you don't do it. So that's great.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, we went over a little bit, but great information. Really appreciate you being here and doing all this stuff with us week after week. And Greg is here week after week until he realizes his mistake and doesn't show up. All right, so
I have too much fun with this.
Good. Did this Jeep Talk Show episode get your engine roaring? Show us some love by dropping a 5-star rating and a blazing review on your go-to podcast platform. It's your way to help us expand our Jeep family. Keep the adventure rolling by hitting follow on social media and like, subscribe, and we love the feedback here on YouTube. Do all that stuff. We'd like to hear your input and your comments. Maybe we got something wrong. Maybe you got a question about something. You can reach out to us. And speaking of reaching out, you can go to xjtalkshow.com/contact to reach out to us and ask those questions.
Yes, please bring more questions.
Hang on just a second.
We like answering those.
Dogs are barking again. So funny. When we first got that dog, I think she was like really nervous from the pound. And we were having discussions about, is she mute? Because she would not bark. She would not make any noise. And now you can't shut the little bitch up.
Newborns do the same damn thing, Tony.
Oh, yeah.
Cute and sweet and quaint and everything until they really find their voice and you start learning how to talk, because there's certain words that like our Aurora, she's what, 20 months old almost, I think, at this point. Trying to remember.
Oh, you never.
So, well, I mean, she'll be 2 in November. So
dads never get it right. I know.
I can't remember the months because I don't date my children how old they are in
still
months.
Alive.
She'll be 2 in November.
They're still alive and they're being fed. That's what dads keep up with.
She has certain words that she is really good about using, but when you ask her to use them, she won't do it.
Right.
Even though she knows what you're saying, she understands more than she can vocalize. Because you can tell her to do something across the room and she'll look you in the eye and be like, okay, and then go do it. Hey, pick up that toy and put it in the box or blah, blah, blah. If only Jeep people were so easy to explain things to when they come to see me.
Well, they think they know something. I feel like I'm having to undo
all this programming from the interwebs and the social media. And it's like, well, I heard this, I heard that. And it's like, man, if you'd step away from those people asking questions and actually go to like a tech savvy site or a forum, or just like, you've been around long enough to remember, like with the Days of Pirate 4x4 and all those type deals, a treasure trove of information. Right. And they didn't put up with the dummies trying to troll or flame or do anything. It's like, if you're going to come in here and act a fool, we're going to run you off. It's not like that on Facebook. Everybody's included. It doesn't matter how stupid you act or how annoying you are. People have to answer your question. And you go, I see people ask the same questions in multiple groups about the same thing. And I read every one of them, and I see the comments are as varied and different from all 3 or 4 of those posts as you can imagine. Yeah. And there might be 1 or 2 people that responded that were anywhere close to getting a correct answer. And I cannot imagine at this point in the game, with the years I've got in, that if I were to get dropped into the middle of this as a noob, not knowing what I know now, it'd be overwhelming.
So I think this is interesting. Yeah. So, forums used to be such the wonderful place to go for information. I mean, it was always problematic. It has problems because there's people involved, but it's a database, and you could go and read the posts from 10 years ago. And, but with, when Facebook came out, now there's no database. You have to ask the same question over and over again. And I thought, how stupid is that? And then it dawned on me, how brilliant is that for Facebook? Because you need stuff posted for people to be there and be interacting. So It's great.
Their dollars depend on the traffic.
Yeah. So it's great asking questions over and over again. And it's a shame about forums with the database. They were just really, really cool. They're still out there, but nobody posts on them anymore, hardly at all.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to take a pause and then read this, the getting out, the wrap up of the show. Hang on one second. So did this Jeep Talk Show episode get your engine roaring? Show us some love or check the clutch. Maybe you got the clutch pushed in. You don't over rev your engine. Show us some love by dropping a 5-star rating and a blazing review on your go-to podcast platform. It's your way to help us expand our Jeep family and keep the adventure rolling by hitting follow on social media and joining our newsletter crew for the hottest Jeep updates and unmissable events. Oh, and if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. We love hearing your feedback, so get those comments in there. There's a bunch of ways that you can reach out to us. If you're just listening to the audio version on this thing, maybe you want to go to xjtalk.com/contact and email us or leave us a voicemail. That's go right there, and you can figure out how to do all those things. Again, xjtalk.com/contact. Thanks for cruising with us, and get ready for more thrilling journeys ahead. Greg, thanks a lot for being there.
Thank you, sir. Y'all keep those questions coming. We look forward to seeing you next time.
Broadcasting since 2010.
You're my friend. You're my new friend.